guys, it's M4J here and welcome back to Global Ventures here on Planet Coaster. Now, last time out we did some stuff to do with the Valley of the Nile area of the park. This time out I realised I needed more space if I was going to make that section of the park work. You can kind of see where it abruptly cuts off. So I went and found a very good YouTube tutorial. I will try and remember to link it in the description. If I do forget, please do remind me, because this woman is a lifesaver basically. She did a really cool tutorial about how to turn sandbox modes, which is what Global Ventures was. You can turn it into a scenario editor park, you can reopen the file, you can edit the boundary sizes, which is what I'm doing here, including X, Y and Z offsets, which is awesome. Why you'd want to change the Y offset, I don't actually know. I'm guessing it's like a height limit rather than you know, making the park go higher or lower. But yeah, this was the catalyst for this entire episode, was me finding out that I could in fact extend the boundary of the park. So as you saw, the first thing I did there was increase the boundary size. The area to the right hand side of the park behind the palace where Antony and Cleopatra is, that's all been extended, which means I can now create a natural looking slope for when that area of the park gets covered up. For those of you that don't know, the Valley of the Nile section of the park, the name's a bit of a clue, but it's an Egyptian themed section and it's going to be set at night. So in order to make that work lighting wise, the plan is to bury that entire area under a giant hill. Because the park as a whole is called Somerset Hills, this is Global Ventures, which is one park in Somerset Hills. Thematically, it makes sense to have lots of hills. One of the other drawbacks, well, I say drawbacks, one of the benefits to actually increasing the park size was the area behind Manic Miner in the Legend of the Frontier section has now gotten a lot bigger as well. So I could do a little bit more theming there, which is very nice. Also, the areas behind Rocky Mountaineer and Wildwood have also been extended, so I can do a lot more theming there as well as increasing the track length on Forest Falls, which is something I will be doing in the not too distant future, so stay tuned for that. In the meantime though, I'm building a brand new park entrance, and this really was what the crux of this episode was going to be. Before I found out that I could actually extend the park boundaries, and then I tacked that bit on at the start as well. So the new park entrance is built in front of the new railway station that we constructed like 4 or 5 episodes ago now, I think it was. And this was all done so that I could open the space up for a brand new section of the park, which is just to the left of where we're looking right now, as well as a couple of other really cool things which I'm very much looking forward to doing, I should say, rather than to do. Plus, the entrance to the Egyptian section can be a little bit more well made, shall we say, rather than just the brute force hill that I was going to create. I can actually sculpt it, make it look a lot nicer, have the light gradually diminish as you head into that section, rather than just be a solid rock wall and then suddenly you're in the dark. And it also gave me a chance to sort of theme the outside of the park a little bit more as well. So you can see I'm building the park entrance here. There's 2 things that I've created. There's guest spawners, which you saw me place at the very beginning, and then there's these, which are the park ticket entrance gate things. This bit was the least favourite bit, was actually placing these gates, because they're not the easiest things to place, and the pathing, as we all know, is not the best. However, I do think I've done a pretty decent job, all things considered. The guest spawner side of things, I was actually on Reddit the other day and I saw someone made a railway station as a guest spawner. And for those of you who have watched the channel for a long time, you'll know that the original Somerset Hills and Global Ventures, which was like 4 or 5 years ago now, I started building that on Rollercoaster Tycoon 3. That had a railway station where guests actually arrived at the resort. And this version was also supposed to have a railway station, but we didn't have the space for it until now. So you can actually see a little bit later on in this episode, I do start to build a railway station. I kind of improvised as I went along, because it's modern day. It's meant to be a heritage railway that brings guests to and from the theme park. Alton Towers is actually built quite close to a heritage railway, and there are plans. I don't think they'll be approved anytime in the near future, but there are plans to actually have the heritage railway drop guests off directly outside the park, or as close to the outside the park as possible. I think it's like a 5-minute bus ride, which would be really cool if it does happen. But considering heritage railways aren't in the best health financially at the moment, it might be a long ways off. Anyway, that's not what this episode is about. So you'll see me build this railway station. You'll also see me build an entrance to the park. The entrance to the park is very much a temporary placeholder. Originally I had ideas to build a French-themed welcome plaza and fit it in with the sort of the naming convention that we've got for the other areas of the park. The only difference would be that it would be in French. I did used to be able to speak French quite well. It's not my forte anymore, and yeah, you'd have to excuse the puns as well. French is one of those languages I always found it kind of easy to slip in and out of. A long time ago now, very long time ago, it's like 10-15 years ago almost. These days it's not as easy as it used to be. I can still say some phrases. I can tell you where I'm from and where I went on holiday last year, but besides that, I can tell you how many cats I've got as well. Yeah, but beyond that, yeah, my French is a little bit on the downside now, shall we say. But yeah, the French themed area is one that I was looking to add. However, I do actually have a list of areas in the park that were part of the original plans that never quite made it to fruition. So I'm kind of torn at the moment as to what I'm going to do. One thing I can say for sure though is Somerset Avenue, which ran from the old entrance to the park to the centre lagoon, that is now being repurposed. Somerset Avenue is now this little section between the Heritage Railway and the main entrance to the park. That will be Somerset Avenue. It will work a little bit like the Disney Village, Disney Springs, downtown Disney, depending on what Disney resort you're at. I suppose City Walk at Universal as well. A lot of my analogies are Disney based, you might have noticed, but Universal they're catching up. Slowly but surely they're catching up. Little ways to go still, but there you go. But that kind of thing of, you know, it's kind of part of the resort, but it's not part of the park, if that makes sense. So that's what's going on there. And yeah, Somerset Avenue will be part of that. So I don't think there'll be actual shops that I'll be building, but I'll be building buildings where shops would be. And yeah, I'm personally very happy with it. I think it's worked out really, really well. As I said, the entrance building to the park is very much a placeholder. I think the French section, if I do go ahead with it, because I've already got some ideas for rides, which I'm really, really happy with. But what I will be doing is, if I don't use it for the entrance plaza, and I revert back to the welcome plaza theming, I'll move the French section to between the entrance plaza and Legend of the Frontier, because we've got that huge open space now. There's plenty of room for rides. As I said, I've already got some ideas for rides. I'm very much going for a kind of ripping off Disney a little bit here, but for a Jules Verne type area, a little bit of steampunk, not too much. I'm not so much interested in the futuristic side of things necessarily, but because Jules Verne is a very famous French novelist, if you feel like you don't know his work, I'm pretty sure you will if you were to hear some of the names, things like Around the World in 80 Days, From Earth to the Moon, Journey to the Centre of the Earth. They're all Jules Verne novels. 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea as well. And if you're a fan of Disney parks, you'll have heard some of these names as well. And also Discoveryland at Disneyland Paris. It was inspired very, very heavily by the work of Jules Verne. Very, very good futurist novelist. I've not actually read any of his books, is the sad thing. I've seen films inspired by his books, but I've not actually read any of the books themselves. Obviously, I'll have to read them in English, because, as I said, my French is very bad now. But yeah, it's a big inspiration. So I've got some ideas for rides based on the works of Jules Verne, but I don't want to rip off Disney. So I'm going to try and use I'm going to try and use books that haven't been featured that heavily by Disney in the past. But we'll see. We'll see. For now, though, you can see I'm building this little station building. It is built to a modern design. The little lift that I've built there, it's designed for huge capacity because, you know, a train load of 100 people might arrive and they all might want to use the lift or might need to use the lift for whatever reason. So I've tried to make it as capacious as possible. And I kind of like the fact that it's mixing old with new. I've not built the platforms yet. I am planning on building platforms and track to go along with it. But for now, I just wanted to get this kind of base thing down. As I said, I was very much improvising when I was creating this. Things like the lift was a very... originally it was going to be like guest relations and stuff like that. And I thought, actually, are they going to be able to use that if it's built outside the park? So I decided to just make it an open space. And then I realised I had to fill it with something. And I just happened to find the lift doors. And, you know, the gear started whirring. And I thought, oh, hang on, I can actually make something out of this. As I say, I'm really, it's a happy little accident, really, as Bob Ross would say, and I'm very happy with the outcome. Some of the roofing styles here as well I was quite happy with. This building, it just seemed to work. Everything I did with it just seemed to work. And I don't know whether it's just a fluke or whether I'll come back and look at it again and realise it's not actually as good as I thought it was. I'm just watching it now, hoping it's as good as I remember, otherwise I've just bigged it up for nothing. But yeah, you can see here, got the nice little staircase as well, leading up to the platforms. It's going to be good. And there is a little bit of a roof that I've built across the guest spawners, so you won't see guests walk up and use the platforms. I've not gone that detailed with it, but you will see guests coming out of the station down Somerset Avenue towards the main park. Of course, let me get my words out. In the actual design of the entire resort, there's a water park and a safari park that are part of the resort as well, and they'll span off Somerset Avenue to the left and to the right. Don't know which way around it is yet. Planet Zoo is something that's still on my periphery. I'm still considering it. Already I have plans for what I would build if I had Planet Zoo, so you know, again, the gears are whirring, ideas are coming, and if they do a Planet Water Park at any point in the future, that will complete the trio. And it's, again, very much based on what you could do in Roller Coaster Tycoon 3. You could build a theme park, you could build a water park, you could build a safari park. So, the ideas are there. The ideas are there. Ready to go if necessary. So yeah, back to the French area of the park. As I say, I'm really torn on it. I like the idea of the welcome area being quite, not just like a welcome plaza, but be quite different. Almost fit into the theme of the rest of the park. I'm also inspired by the... is it Port of Adventure, I think it's called, at Islands of Adventure. And I must say, Islands of Adventure is one of my favourite non-Disney parks. I think Busch Gardens, Williamsburg and Tampa are my two favourite non-Disney parks. And then I mean, those two are like tied, really, because they're both so good. And they do things so differently. One's European, one's African. And you know, I like the fact that every ride, or pretty much every ride at Busch Gardens Tampa has a twin or a very similar ride at Busch Gardens Williamsburg. The only exception of that is Kumba. We all know the story behind that. Dragonfire was a thing, and then it was a very bad thing, so now it's no longer a thing. But yeah, Universal Islands of Adventure is a very, very good park. It's very well designed, very well thought out. Some of the rides in recent times, particularly Hagrid's, it's been absolute design genius, basically. They've really put their heart and soul into it, and it really, really does show. And the new coaster they're building for next year as well does look very intriguing indeed. However, there are some aspects of it that could perhaps be improved on. Fast and Furious, a very good example of that, even though it's not technically Islands of Adventure, it's just at Universal Studios Orlando. But I like the fact that they were inspired by... Islands of Adventure was inspired by works of literature. And again, for those of you that don't know, that's the case. That's why you've got like Marvel Superhero Island, because it's inspired by the comic books, which is a work of literature. Same with Zeus Landing, and even the Lost Continent, the original version of the Lost Continent, was based on literature. So it's really, really good how they've actually gone ahead and done it. So, as I say, French novelists, doesn't just have to be Jules Verne, there could be other aspects as well. Maybe split the area in two, have more of a steampunk area for Jules Verne, and then have other French authors like Victor Hugo. Trying to remember, did he write The Three Musketeers? I know he wrote The Hunchback of Notre Dame. I'm trying to remember if he wrote The Three Musketeers, and people are probably screaming at me right now. I know that was Alexandre Dumas, I think, was Three Musketeers. Anyway, I'm not that big on literature, as you can probably tell. So, yeah, inspired by works of literature. That was the plan. So whichever way I go with, whether it's Welcome Plaza or whether it's an actual designated French area, that is going to be the plan. But for now, I kind of went with the idea of this is going to be the French area in the Welcome Plaza. So it's not a very Parisian-looking building. That was originally going to be the plan, to build a Parisian-looking building, but it's actually more just a generic French, maybe French Riviera style terracotta type building. I didn't do any research towards this, and it probably shows. So again, I kind of have two options. I can leave this building as is and make it a non-French Welcome Plaza and just say, you know, this is like the Port of I think it's the Port of Adventure, or Adventure's Port. It's something like that. I could probably look it up, but I'm on a time limit right now, so I've got to try and match my time-lapse voice to the time-lapse footage, which I didn't manage to do last time, and it probably showed. Anyway, that's by the by. So yeah, it's inspired by the it might be Port of Entry. I think it's called Port of Entry at Islands of Adventure. If you know Islands of Adventure, you'll know the area I'm talking about, where it's got the lighthouse, and it's just a welcome area. You know, it's not particularly themed to anything in particular. It's just a generic, ties into the theme of the park rather than an individual theme of an area. And I really like the way that they've incorporated that, because it does fit the theme of the park very, very well. So this is kind of the same thing. It's meant to be that, you know, your journey begins at this place. You walk through, you walk under the railway, and then you've got a choice of 4. You can either take the gondola system to the Japan themed area, you can take the boat to the Bahamas themed area, you can take the train, which does a whistle stop tour of the entire park, or you can walk down the central plaza, which hasn't got a name now because it was Somerset Avenue and now it's not. And that will take you into the centre of the park, and then from there you can hub and spoke your way around the park, very much like you can at the Disney parks. That is the plan. So it could just be a port of entry type area with a port of entry type name. I'm not going to use the exact same name for obvious reasons, but that kind of idea. That is the gist of what's going on. And this little bit here, it's kind of like a welcome courtyard before you enter the main park. There's going to be like guest relations buildings, which again won't actually have any stalls in because they're not technically inside the park at this point. So it's going to be mainly cosmetic. There might be some pathways that go in and out. Otherwise, I'll just make a nice looking floor and maybe just some eye candy in the little bits of doorway that you can actually look through. But I'm looking for ideas on this because it's very much an improvised, plucked out of thin air type thing. So I'm very keen to get some ideas so I have a better idea as to what I'm doing with this. So if you have any ideas, feel free to drop some comments down below. I believe there's also a channel on my Discord. If there isn't, then there will be, where people can leave ideas, because it's much easier to have little chats on there, share pictures and videos and all that kind of thing. And yeah, basically just share some ideas for this little opening entrance to the park. Those diagonal park entry gates as well, I'm thinking of making them perpendicular to the main path, so when you get to the end you can turn left, right, or go straight on, rather than this weird diagonal thing. It kind of works, it kind of doesn't. And you can see here I'm just adding little doorways that go into these ticket booths that I've built. They're mainly like the actual tickets you would buy from the 2 buildings either side of the entrance, but this is kind of like a place for security to sit and things like that if you have your bags scanned and all that kind of good thing. This will be where it happens. And again, it doesn't really fit in with the theme of the building, but sometimes you do get these little areas where it doesn't quite fit the theme, but it's there for necessity rather than for aesthetic reasons. And that's what these doors are. Plus they've got the little keypads on as well, so they're very much security type doors. Right, that's going to be it for me for this episode. I'm going to leave the music to play out and then the outro to play out. This series is very much, it's kind of like a reboot, basically. It's kind of like a reboot. New year, same old stuff in many ways, but also a nice little bit of fresh newness as well. So the fact that we're starting the year with the new park boundary and the new entrance, I thought it was a good way to get things going again for 2020. Also the new decade as well. This is the decade of global ventures apparently. And I'm really, really excited to continue this series. I've had some really good ideas over the winter break. And I'm really looking forward to implementing them in the park. So, like I said, feedback is always appreciated. I know this isn't always the best first time around. It normally takes me 2 or 3 goes to get things right. So do bear that in mind when you're leaving feedback and offering ideas. But beyond that, thank you very much everybody for watching. Don't forget to hit the like button if you enjoyed the video. And of course, if you're enjoying the series. And of course, if you're excited about where we're going with this series this year. Besides that, like I said, drop some comments down below. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button. If you have already subscribed to the channel, thank you guys for your continued support. And until next time, I will see you soon.